How to understand Trump's bombing of Iran? Well, we have to go back a little bit. First, let me just say I wouldn't be surprised if Iran was warned of the attack. I think they already knew there was going to be an attack. They emptied out these facilities, and so really it's just mostly theater. But we need to understand why the theater. What happened in the first and second act to make sense of this? Well, I don't even know if it's the third act. Maybe just more second act theater. Okay. Going back, and excuse that parts of this explanation are going to be crude. So the Jews after World War II were given some land in the Middle East. The land was not given to them by the Arabs in the Middle East or Christians or anybody else living there. It was given to them by the United States and Europe, essentially. Okay, so they get this land, but they set up a democracy, but this is a problem. If they give all the Arabs equal citizen rights, then they could eventually take over the democracy, being that's how democracies work, and then the Jews would no longer control the land that they felt was given to them. So they basically had to prevent the Arabs from getting enough Arabs to get citizenship so that they could vote what they wanted. So in a sense, Israel's making a very long-term play here. They want everything. They want to have total Jewish control of the government of Israel and keep all the Arabs pacified. Of course they do this through force. And the question is going to be, in the long term, will Israel succeed in this? Or would it have been better off if, like the United States and Britain, if they basically just gave everybody equal citizenship and just let what happens is going to happen? So anyway, whatever. This is the path that Israel has taken, especially under Netanyahu. So they basically don't give the Arabs full citizenship, the Palestinians, whatever. And of course, they're a little bit bitter. So Iran funds them because Iran doesn't like the fact that, Iran has a beef with the United States going back to 1979 and before. So we won't go into that, but I think everybody understands that. So Iran started funding Hezbollah in the north, in Lebanon, and Hamas, in the south, in Gaza. And again, these people have their own agendas. They have nothing to do with Iran. But whatever, it works out for Iran for power projection in the Middle East, because all countries try and project power. One thing I will say is that don't fall into this like Iran's some special evil terrorist organization. All nations try to project power if they can. And they do it by funding these what they call freedom fighters, and everybody else calls terrorists. So one country's freedom fighters, another country's terrorists. Anyway, okay. So Israel has this problem where they're trying to pacify all the Arabs and Palestinians around them. Iran is funding Palestinians in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon. And so Israel's been trying to deal with them, trying to pacify them. And so it also wants the United States to hit Iran because Iran is the source of the money. So from Israel's point of view, if it can do regime change in Iran, if it can just make it weak enough, then no money will go into Hezbollah and Hamas, and then they can pacify the Palestinians and keep control of Israel for the Jews and, call it a democracy. So that's one way they do that is they have 20% of Arabs in Israel as citizens, so they can say, look at these guys, we're a democracy, right? Anyway, so what's happened is that when Israel's been running out of money. This is just my personal theory. It's gone cheap. That's why Hamas was able to attack. And so Israel's now gone this really strong armed way to we're going to eliminate Hamas. But they can't. I don't think they can. And so same thing with Hezbollah. And they did weaken Hezbollah, but they did it using techniques that are really beyond the pale. But I'm not going to get into all of that. So anyway, they now have Hamas weakened. They have Hezbollah weakened. All they need to do is get Iran weakened. And that's why they've pushed so hard for Trump to do it. And they're doing it under the excuse about Iran building a nuclear bomb, which in my opinion they are not doing, or if they are doing it, they already have. So either they have the bomb or they don't want the bomb. It doesn't really make a difference. They're never going to use it. So because Israel has I don't know, 60, 200 nuclear weapons in a submarine. So that means that whatever Iran does, sends the missiles, the Israeli submarine can just wait and then obliterate Iran afterwards. So there's no, anyway, it's just not going to happen. So that's the pretext. But what Israel's really looking to do is to weaken Iran. And the United States wants that too, ever since 1979. So there's a whole long bunch of complex geopolitics around that. But I just want to explain that this bombing is just it's not really the U.S. declaring war against Iran. I doubt any Iranian was killed. They all knew it was going to happen. They cleared out. This has sort of happened before. And so I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to do something. So anyway, I think I better just leave it there. But I just want to explain to you, this is really what it's about. It's the U.S. trying to weaken Iran both for its own interests and for Israel's interests so that it can reassert U.S.-Israeli power in the region. I don't think it's going to work. But again, story for another day. Hope you have found this informative. Okay, why isn't it going to work? Remember, Israel's long-term calculus is that Iran is creating Hezbollah and Hamas. Gets rid of Iran, then they will wither up and die away, and then their long-term plan of Jews controlling Israel wins. I just believe that plan from the start is flawed and just won't work long-term, because I believe, take Hamas, you take Hezbollah, you take many of the Arabs, Palestinians in the area, it doesn't matter whether you believe like they're genetically Islamic and want death to all Jews, which I don't believe, but okay, if you do believe that, or whether you believe they're justified in their feelings of hating Israel, it does not matter. That is the thing driving things. So you can't fix that. I mean, many other people have said this. I'm not the first one. So even if the Iranian regime fell and democracy took over Iran tomorrow, it would not change anything in the region. I mean, things would be shuffled around, but Israel will be back to the same problem. It is displaced people from the area 70 years ago and all their progeny, and then other Arabs that have beefs with their own countries in Egypt or Saudi Arabia or wherever. They're not going away. They're just not going away, I think. So this is not going to work, because even if the plan worked, like what they're trying to do, I just can't see it working. But it has worked so far. Well, I think it was working until maybe like 5 or 10 years ago. So there was a period of time where it was working. But I fundamentally I just don't think long term it's going to work. And many of these geopolitical struggles, they happen over decades, right? This isn't something that's going to be resolved in a year or a month, or this little attack or this little attack. These are very long-term things. So I feel Israel has miscalculated. They're not going to succeed. I believe most smart Israelis who understand this, the way I'm explaining, have already left Israel. It's done. Whatever happens, Israel's going to end up a theocracy itself, right? So they're going to become more Iranian than they're Iranians. And I think that's where I see things going. I think that's where most educated Jews see things going. So, but we'll see. Don't have any answers, but I figured, I said, well, I don't want to say what I think is going to happen, but so yeah, this is what I think is going to happen. That Israel will become a failed state because they've tried to execute a strategy that is just not going to work. Again, the core flaw in their strategy is that Iran is the root of all their problems. But Iran is not the root of all Israel's problems. Israel is the root of all its own problems.